It was amazing indeed, one of the nicest Italian sailboats ever.
Marcello Melli helped organize logistics for the trip. He says everything started out business as usual. The Bayesian arrived in the small fishing village of Porticello on August 18th.
We get a really interesting insight from Marco Melli, a shipping agent. He makes an almost cursory comment in Gone in 16 Minutes. He's with the Louis Group, and he seems to be some sort of consultant tasked with the logistics, providing support or services to the Bayesian. If Bayesian is James Bond, then Melli was M.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Nightline explicitly notes that Melli helped organize logistics for the trip, but he actually did more than that. Listen to this.
It was the last full day of the trip. The guests planned to leave the yacht the following afternoon. It was a Sunday, and a storm was brewing.
It was unusual to see a boat at anchor with that specific weather.
So Melli was not only aware of the weather, but he thought it was quite strange that you would be at anchor given what is approaching. And as a result of that knowledge of the weather, he sends an email to the captain, and here he says that.
It was a Sunday, and a storm was brewing.
It was unusual to see a boat at anchor with that specific weather that was expected. We did send an email to the captain, just checking what was the plan, and if he required any service, any assistance.
Melli says he never received a reply back.
This is potentially very important information. Of course, it depends on the captain's typical response. What was his typical pattern when it came to emails specifically from Melli? And you would think that there would be regular communication between the two of them, especially given the level of service and the level of client that was on board in terms of the Bayesian. And remember, all of this was on August 18th, the last full day of the trip. And so what often happens on the last full days? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, the footage from a yacht also interesting, please do show your appreciation. You can hit the like button, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So the question comes up again, what often happens on the last full days of a vacation? People relax. There's a temptation to stay up later and celebrate harder because the next day the party's over and it's back to work, it's back to the grindstone. And if the crew were celebrating, or if the crew were invited to celebrate with the passengers, it would happen on the last day, wouldn't it? Their job was done, they delivered a great trip, and who knows, some may even have bonded with the passengers. And why wouldn't a young crew bond with young Hannah? That's another aspect we need to highlight. Those who knew Hannah knew she could let her hair down and have fun when the occasion demanded it. And this was one such an occasion.
Wanting other people to be the best in their own way and bringing them up. She knew how to unabashedly have fun too.
She knew how to unabashedly have fun, and the other friend sitting on the couch sort of glances over and gives a little bit of a smirk, kind of reinforcing that whole notion. And I mean, it was a momentous occasion, not just for herself, not just for Hannah, but for her dad. Her dad wouldn't just be celebrating his good fortune, but hers. And she wouldn't just be toasting her new life at Oxford, but his. And so here it is from Melli.
And a storm was brewing.
It was unusual to see a boat at anchor with that specific weather that was expected. We did send an email to the captain, just checking what was the plan.
So look at the situation. M is basically going, well, this is unusual activity. You know, it's unusual for a boat to be at anchor given the expected weather. So the weather shouldn't have been a surprise. And then as a result of that, he sends an email to the captain. And this is where I think you've got to use some insight, which is maybe there was bad weather on the way, and maybe the captain made a decision, or maybe somebody else made a decision. Maybe it was Mike Lynch. But you can imagine a situation where bad weather's on the way, but it's only due to hit the next morning. And you say, well, let's lay anchor. We shouldn't really be doing that, but let's lay anchor and let's have a good time. It's the last day, and let's deal with that later on, because the priority is to give this sort of well-heeled group the send-off they deserve. Doesn't that make sense? That you would think, well, you know what, there is bad weather, but we can deal with it. And that was sort of minimized. It was pushed to the background because it was the last day and ultimately the last night. Not only that, but because of the fact that there were two people celebrating things and they didn't want to throw water on that sort of celebration. They didn't want to sort of literally be the crew raining on the parade of these well-heeled clients on the very last night. Does that make sense? So to reiterate, what Melly has just been discussing is that they had knowledge of the weather and the approaching storm, and based on that, he communicated with the captain via email basically his concerns. What's your plan? Do you need any support? What's going on? All of this was based on the weather, right? And the fact that Melly says he never received a reply back possibly indicates the email was received but never read. Maybe it wasn't even received, meaning it came into his inbox but he didn't see it, or read but not responded to. Did Cutfield normally respond to Melly's emails? What was the turnaround time usually? What was the typical pattern? Looking into Cutfield's emails may reveal an answer to this question. When was it sent? When was the last email the captain responded to? When was the last time the captain sort of accessed his database and sort of dealt with the digital side of what was going on with the boat and with M? And what was his typical pattern of dealing with M on that particular trip? Because his responsiveness to a work email, an important work email communication dealing with an important logistical detail, may provide some analogy to his overall responsiveness that night. And now let's slow that gone in 16 minutes footage down one more time. Have a look where that email actually came from. This laptop on Melly's desk.
Food for thought.
Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.